Hey there. If you've ever thought, why does no one talk about what transition out of active duty life is actually like, you're in the right place. This is the podcast for military spouses where we talk about all of it, the uncertainty, the opportunities, the decisions no one prepares you for. Real stories, practical strategies, honest conversations. Welcome to MilSpouse Transition Conversations. I'm a Gallup certified Clifton Strengths coach. I'm passionate about supporting military spouses and your host, Anna Larson. Let's get into it. Some military spouses know there's a moment when they are standing in a room that they used to command. This is a very special elite little group. This time, they're not in uniform. They're not the ones giving the briefing. They're the plus one, the guest. They are now the military spouse. Today's episode is for those who have lived in that moment or might live in that moment, and our guest knows it well because they have served in the active duty service, and then they followed that mission, and then they transitioned out of that mission and stepped into an entirely different role, that of the military spouse. It's not just a title swap, it's an entire identity shift, and one that does not come with a how-to guide. So in this conversation, we're going to talk about what it feels like to go from being in the military to being married to the military. I want to introduce my guest, Nicole Zettlemoyer. Nicole graduated from the University of Massachusetts Amherst. She joined the United States Marine Corps as a regional musician. And while active duty in the Marines, she acquired her master's degree from Boston University in music education. She also served as a martial arts instructor. At the rank of sergeant, Nicole finished her 4-year obligation and moved to San Antonio to work as an operations director at a youth orchestra. Realizing this was not the career path for her, she auditioned and joined the Air Force, continuing to serve as a regional musician, a victim advocate, and a master resiliency trainer at Lackland Air Force Base. There she met her husband, Matthew, an 8-year Army veteran and active duty airman. Nicole also started her own small business making wreaths out of real military uniforms. She left the Air Force after a 4-year obligation, which also happened to be when her son Emmett was born. Now Nicole has a 9-month-old daughter and still runs her business. She's a nationally ranked weightlifter and member of her HOA board. Let me bring her up. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I've had lots of guests that are also veterans, but that has never been the focus of the conversation, that process of being a veteran and then moving into the military spouse role. And so I'm excited to talk about what that transition looks like.
I wish I had a more romantic story of why I joined the Marine Corps, but when I was in college, I was a music education and music performance major, and I still wanted to perform a little bit before teaching. And so somebody said, why don't you join the military? They have bands. And I was like, that's pretty cool. And I thought the Marines and the Army were the only two to have a band. And the Marines were the first ones to call me back. And I knew literally nothing about the military. And so I joined the Marines. And of course, I was a recruiter's dream come true with a college degree wanting to join the band. I left for basic training, and that transition was a little rough, but I was just a hard charger from day one. Undergrad at my A school, I got to graduate a few months early, and anytime I was able to get promoted, it was like the first shot. And I was a martial arts instructor when I was in the Marines, and I was very much just a hard charger and tried to do as much as I possibly could. And I loved it. And it was my identity at that point. I loved being a Marine. I was honored to be a Marine and honored to serve. After my 4 years, I got out because of a boy that I'm not with. And
the story, the eternal story, right?
I know, right? It always happens that way. But I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason. Without that, I wouldn't have had this life that I have now. While I was down here in San Antonio, one of the people that came to occasionally work with the orchestra, her husband was serving in the Air Force here. And she was like, there's a bassoon audition coming up. You should try it. And I was like, okay. I haven't really been playing that much. And they're like, what's the worst that happens? You say no? And I'm like, you're right. I go, I take the audition, I win it. And I met my husband because he was prior service Army. He joined our unit about 4 months after I did. So I actually was his sponsor, just helping him transition into our unit as a prior service member.
That's cute.
I know.
Sponsor.
We were just friends for a while, but yeah, he was like, oh, my sponsor's kind of cute. Okay.
I love it.
So it all worked out. And yes, then we got married while we were active. And then I got pregnant right towards the end of my enlistment. And it just happened to be that my ETS was 9 weeks exactly to the day after my son was born, and it all just worked out perfectly. At first, it was a discussion whether we were going to both be mill to mill and have a family. He was a military brat growing up, so he understands that life, and I did not. And so at first I was even just really resistant to the idea of me getting out to be a stay-at-home mom and do the things I'm doing now. And that took a lot of soul searching. We're both in the same career field. We're both in the band. We're like, what do we do if we go TDY for 2 weeks? Who's watching the kid? Oh, we don't have family around here. We're not fortunate enough. All our family's kind of scattered. So after a lot of soul searching, and unfortunately, the death of my mom had a lot to do with it, because she was like, the best thing I ever did in my life was you guys. And I think that kind of came at like the right time, because I'm like, you're right. Nobody's going to, on my gravestone, it's not going to say Master Sergeant of the Air Force. She was a great bandsman. It's going to say loving mother, daughter, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I took that to heart and I got out. While I was in the Air Force too, hard charger, same thing. Won the awards, did all the things. But yeah, I don't regret it for a second. I loved all my time in the service.
Nicole, this is what's so interesting is you've actually had 3 major transitions when you think about it. The first one after your 4 years in the Marines. Tell us about that first transition. Like, how did that transition go for you? Was it like, whatever, no big deal? It was just back to life before the Marine Corps? Or how did you feel through that process?
I would say I was a little burnt out from being in the Marines. So it was a nice like change of pace just to move somewhere new. And thankfully, the people that I met at my orchestra job, they were wonderful people. I was still with my ex at the time, so having him do this journey with me too felt a little more comfortable. I wasn't like soloing it, which helped.
Did you feel like you had all the resources you need? Did you go through the TAP program and all of that kind of stuff? And you were like, yeah, this is going to be an easy swap for me. And it was okay.
I think because I already had a job lined up and I already knew what we were going to be doing. Like we really had a game plan in place. I feel like a lot of TAPS was me just like sitting through these things about how to write resumes and apply for college. And I'm like, I'm doing neither of those things. Like, why am I here? So I was a little jaded about that. I wish it was a little more helpful for me, but nowadays it's a little more diverse, I guess. But in 2018, it was a lot just like how to find a job, how to write a resume. So
yeah,
I felt confident going.
Yeah. Okay. So you left feeling pretty good about where you were headed and what you were going to be doing next. So now you go back in, and this time you're now in the Air Force and you do your 4 more years. Only this time you get married, and now you're having a baby, and now transitioning is happening a second time. What was the difference between the first time and the second time? You've already discussed a little bit about that struggle of, am I going to be a stay-at-home mom, or I should be able to continue my military service? We can go dual military, and having that conversation, which I'm sure was a lot of talking about what would be best for your family. I'm curious about that second transition.
Yeah, the second one, I guess I felt more permanent. I was like, okay, like for real, like I'm not joining a third time. So,
you.
yeah. I think because there were so many big life changes happening, it all just felt a lot more impactful or like dramatic. Because when I was transitioning from the Marines out, it was just, okay, I'm not a Marine anymore, but now I still have this job, like a literal job. And I say literal in the sense because like I understand that being a stay-at-home mom is a job in itself. But at the time, I didn't. Like, I just thought it was almost like a cop-out. At first, I was almost like embarrassed that like I was leaving the service to have a kid and then just being a mom and just being a spouse, because like when you're active duty, you have this preconceived notion of what military spouses are. I guess I didn't want to be like cast into that stereotype. Now that I'm on the other side of it, I'm like, okay, like this isn't as bad.
We're going to dig into that a little bit. But what it sounds like is that you were having like almost like a little bit of an identity crisis, right?
100%.
You'd been known for a large majority of the last decade as a service member, as opposed to just a military spouse. And we do those little bunny ears of just because that is frequently how it's referred to. Oh, you're just the spouse. And there is that feeling within the military spouse community of being discounted in some ways because we're just the spouse. So let's talk about that identity shift of, okay, I'm no longer serving as a military member. I'm now supporting my active duty service member and I'm the spouse. How did that work for you?
At first, I was very salty about it. I didn't want to go to any functions. I didn't like, I don't know, dinners or meetups or, oh, my squadron's having this thing, this lunch. Do you want to come? And I'm, no, like, I don't. My husband's currently a military training instructor. So he, Smokey Bear hat, yells at recruits. So we stayed in San Antonio, but he did a whole new job right around that time. So it wasn't just like I was going to be a spouse of the same unit of everybody I knew. It was, no, now we're going to be a spouse of this completely different unit on base with all these different people from different career fields and everything. So I didn't really have much of a community to begin with. That was also a little difficult in the sense of, okay, like I'm having this new baby. My husband's going and working this new really high stress job. And I don't really know who to talk to about any of it because I don't know anybody that's like also going through that. Like I said, I was a little salty, but at least it was nice because I can understand when my husband speaks military to me. I don't have to be like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
But there was this moment, they had this formal dinner and you had to wear a big fancy dress. I was very pregnant with my daughter at the time. So me and my beach ball went to this big dinner and we sat with some of my husband's coworkers and I just got to meet and chit chat with some of the wives and it was really nice. And my husband was like, maybe you should be a key support liaison for our unit, like a key spouse. And I was like, okay, if it means I can try to meet some girls and do something good for the unit, I'll do that. So I've been doing that since October. And I just won at the group level this last quarter from, of course, hard charging still. So I think that also has helped because I still feel like I'm like a part of the unit a little bit. It's nice to just be a part of it. We do smoothies for them. We set up all these family events for them because they're so busy working 6 days a week, 10 hours, blah, blah, blah. That's also really helped because it helps me stay involved. My husband jokes that I know his coworkers more than he does, but it also has led me to meet like a really awesome community. And I do have a good handful of friends now. I have my like mom friend group and I have my TI friend group. And like, I have definitely met more people and have more support now too, which is awesome.
Yeah. It's almost like you had to go through this, all of the different stages of maybe, I'm going to call it grief, right?
Yeah.
A little bit of grief about leaving the service and having to change who you are and how you're identified. There's a sense of importance that comes with being in the military and what you've done and the mission you're serving and all of the things that you're accomplishing. And then moving from that into the spouse support role, I'm sure that there was some grief and loss of feelings over your watching your spouse continue in that arena and you staying at home with the kids. I'm just going to say every stay-at-home parent feels that a little bit, right? Every once in a while. Some of us embrace that stay-at-homeness with everything, and that is our life's mission, and that is fantastic. But some of us always want something more, and military life doesn't always allow for that feeling of fulfillment from the spouse side. So really interesting. Thank you for sharing that and for being willing to talk about that process that you had to go through. I know you've discussed a little bit about finding community really helped you when you were feeling out of place in that area. Are you seeking out military spouses just in general, or do you find yourself drawn to military spouses that were also veterans that understand where you come from a little bit more, or has it really mattered to you?
I don't want to say it hasn't mattered because I do have some friends that haven't served and they're just as lovely. I don't want to discredit those who didn't serve. So I'm just going to put that caveat out there, I guess. I don't want to discredit those that didn't serve. But I thought at first when I was getting out and then having all these feelings, I'm like, you're being so selfish. You should be not living for your children of a sense, but like that's your new purpose now is your children. And which I still agree with. Two things can be true. My purpose can be for my children, but I can still be salty about it. That's how I cope. But
I love the word salty, by the way. That's so fantastic.
It is definitely a major feature in my vocabulary. When I met these people, like I didn't know they served. I had just met them as moms and military spouses. And then we would chit chat and they would be like, oh yeah, I met my husband because I served at X, Y, and Z. And I was like, oh, okay. You get it. Like you really get it. I feel like it's almost like an instantaneous feeling of ease just to be like, okay, I'm talking to somebody that like literally feels exactly the same way that I do.
I think any kind of community building, so much of it comes from finding people that have shared lived experiences with you. So you feel like, oh, you get me. I don't have to explain myself. If we're talking about military life in general, it's like trying to explain to a civilian why PCS moves are both loved and hated, right? We can complain mightily about them, but it's exciting to go someplace new and fun, even in some instances, to be able to pack up and go every few years and know that you're going to have new experiences and meet more new people and potentially be reunited with old friends in a new location. And yet, what do we complain about more than anything? A PCS move, right? That's like our both loved and hated moment in military life. And trying to explain that to people who've never moved from their hometown in the 42 years of their life is really difficult to try and explain that situation. So I can understand how once you find out, hey, you are a veteran, like you like them just fine as a person before, but knowing that created almost a deeper bond for you in that sense.
100%.
So, yeah, I want to just jump really quickly to relationships with your spouse. And so here you are both dual military. Now you're having a child together and you're getting out. And now there's going to be this massive relationship dynamic shift, the veteran versus the spouse, and having to share that role and feel comfortable in both of those areas and how you made your way there. But I'm curious about what happened with your spouse as far as like when you became the mil spouse. Was there a shift? Was there a new perception? Were there new expectations? Did you talk about it in advance, or did you just roll yourselves into it and figure it out as you went?
Definitely the last one. Yes. I think because it also coincided with us becoming new parents, it was a just total 0 to 100. Like, now we're parents, now I'm out. And at the time, even losing that paycheck and the business behind me, as you'll see. My husband very much had this like picturesque idea of the life he perceives. He just wanted me to be the spouse that stays at home and takes care of the kids. And here's the dinner and here's the apron and hi, honey, how was your day? And at first I really tried it. I really wanted it to work. You know what I mean? Like me personally, I was like, I want this to happen. And after a few months of being home with my son and still trying to do all the things that I wanted to do, like still trying to run the business and compete in weightlifting, still trying to train again, we came to the compromise of putting my son in daycare. And at first it was full time. Now both my kids just go part-time Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's our, again, compromise of things, because I didn't get out of the Air Force to be a businesswoman. Like I didn't get out to have another job. That was almost the harder shift for me, was not getting out to have a job. Like my job is to be to be a mom. And I was trying to fill the hole with being a mom, being a this, doing a this. And I had to like take a little step back. So we came to this compromise now of doing part-time daycare. They go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It gives me enough time to work out, gives me enough time to work on wreaths if I want to, gives me enough time to go to my appointments. Cause that was a big, oh God, talk about how do you go to appointments when you have 2 kids and you don't know it. I'm not paying someone to watch my kids every time I go to an appointment. Oh my God, all the little things you don't think about. We definitely had to have a lot of come to Jesus talks about, look, babe, I'm trying this, but it's not inherently who I am. And he's so supportive in the fact that like he wants me to be happy, because he understands like the sacrifice I did of cutting off my career, because he understands how passionately I like enjoyed it and felt fulfilled by it. And yeah, like I said, again, being a mom is like the most amazing, fulfilling thing I can do for myself. There's parents that do only things for themselves and don't care about their children, do everything for their children and don't care about themselves. And we wanted to try to find that sweet spot. So yeah, if that means that putting the kids in part-time daycare means that I can still have a little piece of myself and be Nicole and not be mom just for 18 hours out of the week, then cool, so be it, let's do it.
I love this story that you're telling, because I understand it, right? I was a stay-at-home mom for our 2 children and also worked either full or part-time in my husband's entire career because I knew I needed something else.
Yes.
And I love being a mom. I homeschool my kids. They're constantly with me. Yes. And
I
work.
want to talk to you about that, but that's a whole other side conversation.
Got it. We could have that conversation. But I loved being with my children, but I also knew professionally I'd had a career before I met my spouse. And I think at that point, I knew that I still needed something that allowed me to feel successful and fulfilled in my career well-being area. It wasn't about being a mom or not being a mom. It was about having something for myself where I could say, I'm doing this, I do this, I'm contributing to something, I'm making my own money, which is also a really big thing for a lot of military spouses, being able to say, I'm contributing to our family finances in whatever way that looks. I think sometimes we get afraid to do that, to speak up for ourselves, to say, I need a change, because it can disrupt an already rocky boat. Military life is no way steady and easy and constant. There's always the ripples and the changes and the, oh, I have duty on Friday. Did I forget to tell you? Or by the way, I'm now going out to training for 3 months. Sorry, I didn't mention that sooner. I leave in 2 weeks, right? And now everything is like up in the air. And sometimes if that communication isn't strong in a relationship, it can cause some major issues between finding that balance of you getting what you need and your spouse getting what they need as far as support. Did you find that there were things about your time in the military, so habits, mindsets that you took from being an active duty military member into your relationship that have served you?
We understand actions have consequences. That's a big one we always talk about. And we always say we want to teach our kids that and I feel like that's like a big thing in the military too. And just, I guess that like constant work ethic is definitely what like I've brought into being a mom. Like my husband always jokes, he's just sit down and relax. And I'm like, but like I could do all these 16 other things. He's just relax. Like I feel guilty if I have 20 minutes to myself, you know what I mean? And so that's definitely a habit that I got to get out of. And because that was definitely something in the military where you always had to like either look like you're busy or be busy.
I love that distinction, by the way.
Yeah.
Look busy or actually be busy.
Look, I'm so busy. But I think for the most part, I think having the experience and getting to be able to travel all around the country, and at least in the band, we got to travel a lot and just meeting new people, seeing different cultures, seeing different lifestyles, I think just gives me like this diversity and this understanding of humanity. And it's been able to allow me to shift and create my own personal parenting views from what I've seen and what I like and what I don't like. I don't know if that really answers your question, but that's just where I went with it.
No, that's okay. I think it does, in the sense of like you pulled from your experiences to kind of shape who you're becoming, right? As a parent and a military spouse. There's all these new identities that you're adopting or in the process of. You're already wearing the titles in that sense, but it's a process of becoming. And not every military spouse is a cookie cutter, the same person. And there are a lot of them that love one thing and others that hate that thing. I talked about both loving and hating PCSs, and that's a perfect example. I know people that would stay in the same duty station their entire career if they could. I am not one of those military spouses. I loved being able to move around the world and seeing and meeting other cultures like you. And I think that has shaped who I am as both a military spouse and as a mother and as just a human being in general. Our last topic area, which is about becoming a military spouse and how, when you became that military spouse, like, did it change your view of military spouses? Because I remember you saying at the very beginning, you're like, I'd met a few of them and yeah, that stereotype like kind of fit what I knew about military spouses. So now that you are one, how has your mindset about that changed? And what would you say differently now?
Yeah, it definitely has changed. I guess also really the only way that I've seen or interacted with many military spouses has been like when I was active was during these like retirement ceremonies, and it's a lot of thank me for my service. And I'm very torn about the thank me for my service I served to thing. I'm very torn about it as a veteran and as a military spouse. And you're laughing because you know exactly what I mean, because this is hard. It's hard and we haven't even, our first PCS is going to be in March to, I don't know where, but we're leaving in March to go somewhere. Hopefully we'll find out in the next month. And I'm like terrified of that. But so there is some sense of like your family having this sacrifice. We don't get to be around our families. So yeah, would I say it's serving the military? No. But would I say it's supporting the military? Yes. I think meeting other military spouses that are chill, normal, down to earth people that have kids or do this, that, or the other thing, it's definitely a lot different. If you want part of your identity to be your husband's service, that's not for me to say that's a good or a bad thing. If that makes you fulfilled and makes you happy, then so be it. For me personally, because I've worn the uniform, I wouldn't go down that route. I do get really salty when people see my husband or we'll go somewhere and there's some military something or mention or another, and they'll look at my husband, they'll be like, thank you for your service. And I'll just be like, hello. My husband's, you certainly don't have the haircut. I'm like, I know, but how would they know? You've got a nose ring. I'm like, I know, but still.
That's so interesting. Nicole, this is so interesting to me because I'll tell you one of the things about being a military spouse is when we talk about who we are, it starts with what our service member does and when they join the military, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost like our identities are connected. It's very rare that I start out with, but at some point I say, and then when my spouse joined the military, then this is now my life. And we followed him around and we did all of these things. And then all of a sudden the who I am equals what he did, for 25 years. That's who I became, was what he did. Yeah. And I did a lot of things in that time frame that were my own, but it's still so intertwined with his service. It's hard to separate that. But then also what you just said, where there's this assumption of when there is two people attending a thing and there's children involved that, oh, sir, thank you for your service, and no recognition that potentially you were also a veteran and or even a member of the service. I think that stigma or that mindset of one style of service member, I would love to see that change. Love to see that change.
Yeah. And if you go by like statistics, it makes sense. There's a lot more men that serve than females. It's realistically, I understand that. The other day, I had to go up and get the award from the commander. And we usually take salute. And I shook and I took it. And hello, goodbye. It felt so weird.
It's the smashing together of the identities that you've held for so long and saying, which hat am I wearing right now? I'm accepting this award as a military spouse, but I'm also a veteran, and having to find that space where you're comfortable being able to be both of those things and express yourself in those ways. I can see that as being something that would be really difficult. And you're still relatively fresh out from your transition. It's not like this has been a decade for you.
Yeah, I was going to say that because when you were talking about how you feel like your life is intertwined with your husband's, I was just about to bring that up. I'm like, I bet by the time we hit his retirement, which he's been in for 14 years. He says he wants to do it for the long haul. So I don't think he wants to do 20 and out. Like, he wants to be a chief. He has all these big aspirations, which I think is great. I'm here for it. So I think at the end of the road, I'm going to be laughing at my almost 34-year-old self, being like, how silly you were to think that you aren't going to be intertwined with all this stuff. I can only speak from my experiences. So that's like how I feel in this moment. But when you say it like that, I'm like, yeah, you're right. Probably even in 10 years, I'm going to look back and be like, yeah, that was naive. Huh?
I want to bookmark, like, in 15 years, you and I are going to have another conversation. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And we're going to talk, or I'm going to ask you these same questions and we're going to see like where you're at there, because I do think that the amount of time between that transition really does make a big difference. You still very much identify as a veteran, and you should, and you always will, because that is what you are. Right. But I think as more of your life is lived as the military spouse, you will also start to recognize and identify with that military spouse community, maybe just a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's now I feel like I also need to find a veteran who was in the service, but also has been a spouse now for 15 years, just so we can have that conversation. I can be like, okay, let's get Nicole and you in a little round table and have that back and forth. Really? That's what it's going to be like? What? Okay. Last question for you, Nicole. What do you wish active duty members understood about being a military spouse spouse and vice versa?
I would say that I feel like it's a lot more difficult for military spouses to find community and to give them grace if they feel like they're feeling lonely. Even as something, I remember I had an argument with my husband one time and I was like, at least you get to have adult conversations all day. Because meanwhile, it's me being like, do you have to go potty? Okay, good job, buddy. We go pee and you get a sticker. But there are still definitely some days where like I'm mourning this old life that I had and seeing even friends from home and all the things they're doing and the community that they still have because they're not 1,500 miles away. We're just trying to fit in and we're trying to understand and support your service. And so like, we want to support you, like we want to understand, but at the same time, if we ask questions, just give us the grace to ask those questions and find out the information, because something as simple as like, why do you even have to go into work today or at this time? Like, why do you have to stay late? Like, why does this matter? It could come off as like being attacked, but sometimes it's, no, I literally don't understand. You were just at work. Like, why do you need to go back? So
yes, I do know.
Yeah.
I do know.
And it's not even because you want them home to like help with chores or anything like that. It's like you just need that conversation and you just want to be with your spouse, and just even if you're not talking to them, you're just around them and there's another adult in the room.
You're talking about that feelings of support as a military spouse when your service member is gone all the time. It does get very lonely, and it doesn't matter if you know all of your neighbors, because they're all in different spaces of whatever emotions or feelings they're having about their own life they're living at that point in time. And that just because you live next door or in a military community does not mean you're best friends with all of these people and that they're your people. On the service member side, recognize where the loneliness might set in, and those questions that we're asking, it's not to pick at you, but it's because we need to feel like you're supporting us as much as we might want to feel like we are supporting you in all of your vast amounts of free time as a brand new mom with 2 children. You've been running this business for a while now. So tell us a little bit about your Wreaths by Nicole P. and what it is and how that started and how that has helped with this transition process for you.
Yeah, I'll just put on the back end. This is the piece of me that I think has given me the sanity to move from the old life to new life, because this is the old life still being able to hang out within the new life, that and weightlifting, honestly. But I made a wreath for myself out of my old Air Force uniforms when they were transitioning from the ABUs to the OCPs, and posted it on Facebook, was like, hey guys, look what I made this thing. And some of my friends were like, you should try and sell these. This was 5 years ago now, which is crazy, July of 2020. And sold onesies, twosies under the table. And in December, the local news station caught wind. They did a story on me. And then the next thing you knew, Fox News, People Magazine, Late Night with David Muir, CBS in the Morning, all these people reached out, and I had a wait list of 2,000 people overnight. And I didn't even have a website. Like, it was very much, holy cow, I guess I got to start this small business. And I was still active duty, but I joke like, thank you for COVID, because we were at home and I had the time to navigate it. And since then, I have made over 3,500 wreaths. I've shipped to every state in the country. People can send their uniforms. I have every fatigue in stock. So if you don't have your own uniforms, I can use stuff I have here, and you can customize them, tapes, patches, ranks. I made them for all sorts of things. Gold Star families. I made one for Chief Bass from the Air Force. She was the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force when I was active duty. So
that's Chief Joanne Bass. You can find her on LinkedIn. She's amazing.
Oh my God. Yes. She's so cool. I got a coin from her. I got a signed book. It was really cool.
That's awesome.
That's my claim to fame. But yeah, I love it. It's like I said, it's the piece of me that I got to move. You're in my workstation now.
So for anybody that is watching, in the show notes, we're going to have a link to Nicole's website, so you can go take a look at, she does have a website now, just FYI.
Yeah.
So you can go take a look at the kinds of wreaths she makes and how she can customize and personalize them for you. I am going to throw this up on stage, which is the how to connect with Nicole directly.
Yeah, so I have a website. You can subscribe to my mailing list. I have a LinkedIn that I've just been going hard on the past few months. You can definitely connect with me on there. If you're looking, I'm always looking for other veteran businesses to collab with. And I have a Facebook. I would say the Facebook is more I say more bumping than my Instagram. I got a lot of followers on my Facebook page. I don't have that many followers on my Instagram, but feel free to follow me on both. But yeah, I respond to any inbox from all 4 of these. So however you feel comfortable reaching out to me, it's totally fine.
And you can see in the background, if you're visually watching this podcast right now, the style of wreaths that she's made. They're so pretty. They're so cute. They're really fun. Just congratulations on, first of all, having a bumpin' Facebook page, which I think is hysterical, but also the kind of recognition you received from doing something that essentially was an ode to your time in service. And the recognition you've received from that and your ability to turn that into a business is a really beautiful thing.
Thank you.
Nicole, thank you so much for being my guest today. For everyone else that is listening, we will see you at the next MilSpouse Transition Conversation. Thank you.
Thanks for being here for MilSpouse Transition Conversation. If this episode resonated, share it with someone in your circle. For more resources and support, head to milspousetransition.com and join the